Good morning. Hope everybody's doing great today. This is October 12th, and you are in the Morning Devo with Bo O. And you could always check out my YouTube channel at Bo Willette, BeauUoulette. And you could see the past Devos there. So this morning we are in 1 Peter chapter 3. We're going to be in part 2 of this chapter, and I wrote some notes that I wanted just to kind of give out this morning. I thought would be cool, maybe help us through this book, because this book is can be pretty bleak in this way, in that it deals with the issue of suffering. And so I put a little note, suffering, and I put its hope. So that's the first thing I put down, and I put eternity. Peter mentions eternity. We're going to have eternity with the Lord, and then he says, and then he uses the hope of suffering, or the answer of what is the hope of suffering, to be evangelism, meaning it's through suffering that people come to Christ. Gives Jesus as the greatest example of this, but he tells us to continually, whether we're in a work environment or we're in our homes or whatever way you can think of, I guess, what other kind of avenue you could think of, but the idea of learning to surrender or submit or subject yourself underneath people that are in higher authority, and even if it means suffering, because there can be a life change in it. People can change their lives. They can see what's going on by what you're going through, and it impacts their life. So suffering has a purpose for sure, and that is it changes our lives. It really does. When we see someone go through something with tremendous faith and integrity, man, it impacts our lives. It changes us. And if you don't believe that, well, then Jesus, you got to look at his life and his death and how that death changed people's lives. It certainly did. The suffering he went through was impactful. And so I put also suffering, how to suffer by being good. Peter stresses that, being good. And then he says how to do it as well, like Jesus, to commit judgment into the hands of the Father. And then I put down, why do we suffer? And Peter gives an example, or gives a reason in the book, and he says, because if it be the will of God. Wow. Yeah, the will of God. So remember Jesus, his words in the Sermon on the Mount, because Peter is probably definitely referring to a lot of that, where Jesus says, hey, blessed are you if are you persecuted or insulted for my name's sake. Happy are you. Blessed are you. Right? Peter remembers Jesus' words, what does it profit to gain the whole world yet lose your soul? Right? You can go through no suffering at all, yet you can lose everything. Or you can go through the necessary suffering that even sometimes denying sin can be a suffering, right? With abstaining from a behavior can be a trial and a pulling away, and that suffering is worth it. It has a work that it's doing in us. Remember we went through the book of Hebrews, and it even talked about Jesus, that suffering played a part in his own life, and you can read that throughout the book of Hebrews. That he was made mature or complete through the things which he suffered. And so suffering does have a place in this world as we see it today, though many people struggle with that, for sure. But Peter, this book is really all about that. So he talks about learning how to submit a lot in the book. And to be able to come underneath, knowing that change can happen as we are in that role of submission. Sometimes we just are way too rambunctious. We're too forward, where we need to learn to be still and be quiet. And we need to learn how to settle the heart. And we need to learn how to come underneath. And so he stresses that with in our work and he stresses that in with wives to husbands, and then he stresses that with husbands to wives. And it's funny, I was listening to another message on this section, and they always, whenever they get to chapter 3 and they talk about husbands and wives, they always talk about love and respect. Wives, love or respect your husbands because they need respect, and husbands, love your wives because they need to know they're loved. They need security. And I just get super blown away by these stereotypes all the time, guys. I got to tell you, man, they just blow my mind. They always have. Ever since I walked into the church and heard marriage talks, I was always like, what are they talking about? Like, it never made any sense to me, and this is why. I'm a guy, and I just want to let you know that security means a lot to me too. So, like when someone says, hey, like women are really concerned about security, I kind of laugh and chuckle, like I don't, like I like a guy doesn't, or like a girl really needs to be loved because that's how they move. They move in love. Guys don't move in love. They move in respect. It's like, no, there's a lot of problems in the world because a lot of young boys weren't loved. That's for sure. And, you can't divorce the two. And I guess that's the main point is, do you need love? Yeah. Do you need respect? Yeah. Does it matter if you're a boy or girl? No. you need love and you need respect. And that's why it says husbands in the same way, consider, be considerate with the way you live with your wives and treat them with what? Respect. Yeah, treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life. Now, it's not necessarily that all women are the weaker vessel strength-wise, too. Some women are a lot stronger than the dudes that they're with, probably. So that's for sure. I think my wife's lower legs can maybe outpower me. I don't know, but usually on the whole, it's not that way. So I think we understand Peter, big fisherman guy, right? So, but I love that their gracious gift. So I just want to put that out, that sometimes you listen to these things and I'm just like, ooh, I don't know about you guys out there, but love and respect both sounds pretty good to me. And, I definitely love that. I want to be loved. I want to be respected. And I need to learn to treat others with love and respect. And that means I have to learn how to submit, learn how to come underneath. Finally, all of you live in harmony with one another. Now, he's not done with the letter yet, but he says finally. And so he's kind of prepping us, right? Getting ready for the end. But he's got some more to say about this suffering stuff, right? So we're God's chosen people, he says. We're called to suffer, and just as Christ did. And I gave you guys the reasons for that, right? Right at the beginning of this. Now it says, finally, you live in harmony with one another. Okay, so live in harmony with one another. Harmony's awesome. There's melody and there's harmony, right? Melody is one line cruising in music. It's going, right? Harmony is two lines. It's two different notes that are within the scale that are moving in this beautiful pattern together in the music. And it's creating a wonderful sensation in your mind. Isn't that great how something together, working together, can really blossom our lives? And it says live in harmony with one another. See, get the idea? Harmony, two, right? Two lines of music going together. Live in harmony with one another. It's saying don't be solo, right? Don't go solo, right? You're not solo. We're all part of the body of Christ. So let's live in harmony with one another. Let's in harmony. We're flowing. We're like music. We're making music together, right? And Isn't that cool? Love's that bond that keeps our tune going really good. I keep doing this, by the way, but you get the picture. Is harmony, two voices. We get to walk together with one another, and that makes harmony. Isn't that cool? Absolutely beautiful. Be sympathetic. The symphony. Whoa, another idea, right? Sympathetic. You know, be, you know, verberating with one another, right? This conglomerate of sound together. Be sympathetic. Love as brothers, sisters. Be compassionate and humble. There's that word, humble. Whenever you hear about suffering, usually you hear about walking humbly, submitting yourself. Christ submitted himself to suffering. His sacrifice was made complete through suffering. He was tried. He was pricked. He was without blemish. He was a lamb that was being looked over to see if it had any little defects on it at all. And there was none there. Isn't that amazing? And so it says to us to love as brothers, to walk together, to be compassionate, to be humble. And says, do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. And he just got done talking about how Jesus did not insult people, but instead he committed judgment into the Father's hands. Commit judgment into the Father's hands. You know, the presidential election's coming up. Everybody's probably stressing out. I don't know. I don't watch the news, so I'm not sure what's going on. But I would imagine people are. But why? Why? You know, we don't have to repay evil with evil or insult with insult, but with blessing, because to this you were called so that you may inherit a blessing. Isn't that cool? You want to inherit a blessing? Then be concerned about God and what God says and what God has called you to do. And that's what this book's saying. This is to what you were called. Christ called you to suffer. So let's endure. Let's kind of get that mind. Gird up the loins of your mind, right? Be sober, right? Vigilant, be ready. That kind of idea. So that's what he's getting at. Don't repay evil for evil. Is there evil that gets done? Yeah, don't repay. Don't try to get back. Don't try to get the payback going, right? I got to pay you back. Chuck Smith was telling a story this morning as I was listening to him on this sub passage, and it was great. He was talking about how in the hippie days, some cool hippie van broke down right in front of him in an intersection, and he was super mad. He was just like honking the horn. Chuck was just laying on the horn like, and even though he knew it was a hippie and he knew that the car was probably dead. Well, the hippie gets out, and he's probably 19 years old or something, the way he's described by Chuck. And he says Chuck just kind of, he showed Chuck the peace sign. He just went like, peace, man. And then he went to try to fix his van or push it out of the way or something. And Chuck just thought in his heart, man, dude, like where am I at? Here I'm the minister, and I'm here laying on the horn, and this hippie dude gets out, probably on LSD, he says, and just looks at me and says, peace, man, be at peace. And he just was so convicted by that. Don't repay evil with evil or insult for insult, but blessing. Bless people. Learn how to be a blessing. Learn how to make people joyful. Give people joy. Give people happiness. But with blessing, because of this, you were called. Now, you can't do these things if you're caught up in judging. So if you're going to be the judge and jury for everybody in the world, and you really, because you just happen to be the person on the planet that really knows what this country needs. Everybody else don't, by the way. And no one who has been born probably in America knows. But you certainly know because you've read the proper books. Do you see the audacity of all that? It's ridiculous, right? If you think your judgments are right or perfect, or you have everything together in the way you're looking at things of the world, then you're totally off. Just think of the view that God has of the world at large and all the things that go on. He's omnipresent. He's omnipotent. He everywhere at once. He knows all things. He can see all things. Jesus could know where people were at before they even said it. He knew their hearts, it says. You don't know their hearts. You don't know where they're at. You don't know what they've said. Have you ever hung out with the President of the United States? Have you ever hung out with any of the people, the congressmen? Have you talked to these people? None of them. All the information we get in this world is from other sources. That's scary. And then our judgments are based off of what other people have told us or we've read of their material. And that's what makes us make the judgments. And if you want to be someone who blesses, you have to get out of that. You have to move away and say, God, you're the one who sees everything properly, so I'm going to give judgment to you, and that's going to free me up to be able to bless. So whoever would love life and see good days must keep his tongue from evil and his lips from deceitful speech. He must turn from evil and do good. He must seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. What did King David say about Saul? Don't touch God's anointed. To Saul, the dude who chucked spears at him, right? When he played the wrong tune. Right? He hit the minor note, right? And pow, the spear came after him from Saul. And Saul was the king. And David was supposed to be king, right? It's definitely seems like a show today or something where, the king is not really the rightful king. And the real king's supposed to be in, but the real king can't get in right now because the king who's still there won't get out. And so there's a giant feud. Seek peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, right? And those who pursue it. So it's important that we seek peace, that we refrain our tongue, right, from deceitful speech. First John says it this way when we went through that Devo. I love God, yet I hate my brother. Right? I love God, but I look at human beings and I look at them with disgust. No, we have to commit judgment into the hands of the Father. And that's why, it's great. Thou, O Lord, art a shield about me. You're my glory. You're the lifter of my head. Strike my enemies on the cheek. King David says, break out their teeth in the psalm. Right? He says, hey, Lord, you do it. You're the one who sees everything. The God who sees, right? That's the God who, that's what God is called, right? In the event of Hagar. The God who sees. And he sees. He knows all things. We can trust him with those things. So to submit, to come underneath, we're going to have to give judgment over to the hands of the Father so that now we're walking humbly. Now we can bless. We don't have to insult. We understand things are disrupted and confused and things of that nature. And we know that even our knowledge, the Bible says, is only in part. 1 Corinthians 13. Only in part. You think you got it all together? It's only in part. So, but we see that the Lord is calling us to something greater, to be like Christ, to be able to look at people and to be kind to them, to not insult in return, to do them no harm, to look at them and truly love them. And in order to do that, we have to move aside the judgment. We have to commit judgment to someone who can judge righteously. So, hey, we only got through a little bit, but we got all week to finish the book. So that's what I'm hoping for, okay? You guys take care. Have a great day, okay? Bye-bye.